Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 96th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm great, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Might as well just go ahead and tell everybody we just recorded our first ever interview for the Missouri Sports Podcast. So it'll be in this episode. We'll stick it in there right after the news. So stay tuned for that. And I'll introduce it a little bit later. But yeah, it was really fun. But don't talk too much about it because we'll talk about it later.
It was a great interview. And, who we interviewed didn't necessarily have any super, super strong ties to Mizzou, but I think that there's still a lot of relevant notes that you guys will find really interesting. So, it was good.
There hasn't been a whole lot of news this week, so perfect timing to have an interview to take up a big chunk of our episode. In theory, we'll have a few more of these interviews coming along, so stay tuned for that. Kyle, I do want to mention something strange that I saw on the way to the studio today. This is not related to anything we're going to talk about. I saw a garage sale. Let's call it a yard sale.
Okay.
However, this yard sale was cleaning products. They looked like new, and it was like a store shelf. Yes, sir?
Was this on College Street?
It was.
Man, I've seen that a time or two.
So it was just like a table set up with like 3 things of Tide and 3 things of Clorox and some Bounty. And someone was shopping there at this table. So I've never seen that before.
Just for cleaning products, that was it?
Yeah.
The quicker picker upper? Bounty?
Potentially. Yeah, there was those sort of things.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So did you stop, or are you good on cleaning supplies?
I might have to stop on the way home and just kind of see what the deals are.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to share that with you because it was kind of strange.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and
I definitely didn't have anything that crazy happen today, so lucky you.
Yeah, well, we can't all, just have these kind of crazy experiences all the time. Should we talk about news?
Yeah, let's do it. There's not much, but let's recap a little bit.
I want to start off with CJ Walker is transferring from Oregon. CJ Walker, I'm just going to call him a 6'7" forward. I don't know if that's what he actually is, but he's a forward of some sort. He was like a top 50 player out of high school. Missouri offered him somewhat late in his recruiting process. He's super athletic, ended up going to Oregon. You talk for a sec. I'm going to look up his stats from Oregon.
Where is he from?
Like I said, I'm going to look him up. You talk about something that doesn't require me to know anything.
Well, put me on the spot here. I definitely remember his name pretty well, in the recruiting process. I don't know a whole lot about him, to be honest, or what his experience was like at Oregon, but good thing you're about to tell us.
Former top 30 recruit. And he said in this article by OregonLive.com, he said, as the coronavirus has tragically continued to spread across the country, forcing our nation into lockdown, it has given me a lot of time to think about my future and what's in the best interest of my family and our health, both mentally and physically. So he said, members of his family are high risk and with underlying conditions back in his hometown of Sanford, Florida. So I think the biggest thing for him right now is getting home to be with his family, and I guess he's gonna sort out the basketball side of things in the future.
So you're not projecting him to transfer to Missouri necessarily, sounds like?
No, I think at the time it seemed like he was going to go to Miami, and Oregon was a little bit of a surprise, in my opinion. I thought he was going to go to Miami, so that would be probably the number 1 team on my list to get his services at this point. Although, anytime a former Mizzou recruit is back on the menu,
folks,
anytime they are back, folks, you got to just reach out and see if there's any mutual interest there. That's all for basketball this week. The NBA is starting back up.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Never been excited about the NBA.
I have before, but yeah, I'm happy that
This is different.
You're jumping in.
Jonte's going to play, potentially.
I saw that. He will at least be on the roster.
He'll be there.
In Orlando.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Mizzou social medias were tweeting and posting about Jordan Clarkson. Damari Carroll still doing his thing with the Houston Rockets, who I think just announced that Trevor Ariza is foregoing the Orlando bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So similar position as Damari Carroll, so maybe he'll get a little bit more playing time there for Houston. And yeah, super intrigued to see if Jonte will play even a single minute.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are he won't. He'll just be a bench player, but teams are losing guys every minute to just electing not to participate.
Yeah.
How about football news?
There wasn't a whole lot.
Really? Not a whole lot of news.
Not a whole lot of news, but there was a transfer from Kentucky, a specialist, like punter / kicker, he's gonna be a graduate transfer. He's gonna transfer to Missouri, and he handled the kickoffs last year for Kentucky. So it looks like we're definitely gonna have a quarterback battle. We're definitely gonna have a kicker / punter battle. So that'll be something interesting to watch. I know there's a lot of young guys on currently on Missouri's roster that might be able to secure that job, or maybe they'll just kind of split it all up. I don't know.
Yeah, in theory, I mean, you could have 3 different players, one handling field goals, one handling kickoffs, one handling punts.
Mm-hmm.
But like we saw with Tucker McCann last year, you can also have one player do all 3 of those things. So,
which is probably not ideal.
Right.
But this guy's name is Grant McInnes, by the way. So, and if I didn't say that, he played his first 3 years at Kentucky. So, interesting to watch what happens there. On the recruiting front, Tyler Macon has been spending some time at the Elite 11 camp, which is for kind of quarterbacks who are going to be about to play their senior year.
Elite quarterbacks, you could say.
I was actually about to say elite, and I was like, well, I can't say that because it's called the Elite 11, so obviously, yes. It really is elite competition, though. I mean, all the guys that are there are super talented, and kind of a lot of them are committed to some top schools. So, I mean, he's a 3-star currently on most recruiting services, but, you know, he's among a lot of 4- and 5-star quarterbacks and was outperforming a lot of them according to a lot of the recruiting scouts and whatnot. So
Drew Lock, a former Elite 11 participant.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and for those that don't know, Tyler Macon is a Mizzou current commit from East St. Louis, and he has 2 Division I level wide receivers that he goes to high school with as well that Missouri is working on. So, hopefully, I really do think Missouri will land all 3 of those guys. Ooh. So. That's exciting. Tyler Macon, he's really exciting in his own right, honestly. I watched some film of him at that competition, and we knew this coming in that he's a very strong arm, but, man, he just really looked like he had a rocket for an arm in the film that I watched, and he just looks very strong, very composed. So I think that they kind of gave some rankings or whatever, and I think he was ranked 5th out of everybody that was there. So we may see a little recruiting bump for him.
You love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now he's according to your rivals, he's the 25th ranked dual threat. Dual threat.
Yeah. I knew what you meant.
What other position does he play?
Dual purpose.
Kicker.
Yeah.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, he's a multi-purpose quarterback and 25th in the nation. So, yeah, look for that to increase, we hope.
Yeah.
But, yeah, thinking about getting those 2 wide receivers along with him, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel strong? You feel strongly?
I feel strongly. Actually, their coach, Coach Sunkett, just did an interview. And I can't remember who it was with. It might have been Frank Cusimano or whatever his name is. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name, but he did an interview recently where he said if he had to bet where those guys would end up, it'd be Missouri. So.
Yes, I remember that now.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do have the details of that correct.
Mm-hmm. Lewis and Lovett are their last name. So, and they're both like 4-star wide receivers. So,
yeah.
It's exciting.
It is very exciting. Are we ready to just introduce our interview now?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so first ever interview for the Missouri Sports Podcast. His name is Timothy Huskisson. I and our producer Cameron and I graduated from Willard High School with him in 2011.
Yes.
I should probably know that. He went on to play Division I college basketball at Northern Colorado. A Springfield native. We talked a bit about his recruitment. We talked a bit about his senior season in high school. It was really eventful for the state of Missouri as a whole, especially Southwest Missouri. Kyle and I weren't really friends. We knew who each other were, but we weren't really friends like we are now. And he was at a lot of the Willard games that I was at, and we didn't even know it. And so we talked about that a lot. That was really fun. I talked about his recruitment and his relationship with, or lack thereof, with Cuonzo Martin, and his relationship that he has now with future Missouri Tiger Anton Brookshire. So that was really fun. Kyle, you want to give your thoughts? After we'll play the interview, and then afterwards we'll jump back in and discuss some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. But yeah, I can definitely vouch for Tim's success in high school. He was a fantastic player. I mean, just an absolute beast who rarely was stopped. At least whenever I was watching him in person. So it was a really, really fun year. 2011 was, for, like you said, for Southwest Missouri. So much talent in the area, and Willard was right there up with everybody. So really smart, articulate guy. I think it was a really, really good interview.
Yep. So enjoy the interview. All right, so we are here with Tim Huskisson, 1,000-point scorer in high school at Willard here in Southwest Missouri, 1,000-point scorer at Northern Colorado. I had this written down and now I forgot it. 2018 Missouri Sports Hall of Fame Filbert 5 honoree. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on with us, Tim. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored, man.
We go back, you and I and producer Cameron, that's what we call him around here. We graduated from Willard together, and so I wanted to take it all the way back to that at the beginning here. There were some noteworthy games and stuff that kind of popped into my head. We'll start with what potentially is almost definitely a bad memory. This is one I just remembered was you getting hurt. You already know where I'm going with this. Was that was that at Marshfield?
It was at Lebanon.
Right. I wasn't there in attendance.
9 years ago.
So can you just kind of go through that story a little bit?
So just kind of the backstory behind that whole kind of week. Honestly, no one expected me to kind of, I guess, blossom would be the word. I mean, I was kind of a late bloomer. So there was a lot of hype going into that game because those dudes talk a lot of smack. And so we were just chiming in a little bit on social media about the game, and I was like, I'm going to go off, like, get ready. And it's not what, like, the media is today, but, like, for sure it was just kind of a big deal. And so got to a good start. I don't know I know I got to a pretty good start that game, and I got a breakaway layup. I got a steal, and went up for a dunk. I think I scored the bucket, and a kid I don't want to say that he did it on purpose, but sometimes, like, when a guy's a good athlete, guys don't expect them to do some of the things they do.
Right.
So, like, I think, like, if he would have there was nothing he could have done, but I don't think he expected me to do what I did.
Yeah.
And so he just kept running and we ended up connecting bodies while I was, like, at the rim. And obviously, you get sweaty palms, and I tried to roll over. All I know is the last thing I remember is trying to, like, turn over, and my feet kept going and I landed flat on my face.
Mm-hmm.
So from there I was out stoned. Like, I don't remember a single thing that happened from that point. Until I actually got in the ambulance. And that's kind of another crazy story too, but kind of the ending result of that was I was blacked out. I was responsive, but I was blacked out. And there was a lady that was at Lebanon. They were renting a room for like a church event. And she actually prayed for me. And that was like the first time, like that's the first thing that I can actually remember. And it was weird. Her name's Lisa Ann, actually. I know her pretty well. We stayed in touch. But that was like such a crazy experience. But yeah, my boys, we pulled it out, got the dub. And I remember the team came out to the hospital afterwards. And fortunately enough, I didn't break any bones. Zero like injury, like major injuries. I just had a concussion.
A lot of swelling.
A lot of swelling.
Yeah.
I actually have a picture. Like till this day. It's on my Facebook. Like hours after it happened, it's like a golf ball.
Right.
On my face. And so that was kind of like, I mean, that was a way to kick off. Like, I don't know how many games that was in. I think it might have been 5 or 6, but a way to start a season. It was the day before my 18th birthday as well.
Yeah.
So yay.
I remember you coming back to school, and I think me just hearing about it, it was just like a crazy story. And I think even one of the guys brought me into maybe Coach K's office or something, and we watched the game film of you falling, and it was just like, holy cow. And everybody that was there said it was like one of the worst things they'd ever seen.
Yeah, definitely. Like, those type of injuries. I mean, like you can go back to like the Louisville game where the kid, had that catastrophic injury, or when Paul George got hurt, and like those were like legs. Like most people don't die from leg injuries.
Right.
It's like I landed completely on my face, and honestly walked out of the gym.
Yeah.
Like that's the crazy part is I don't remember it, but I walked out of the gym, and it's something that like it's crazy. Like I went through a whole college career and overseas career like not having tattoos, and like all of a sudden it just kind of hit me and like gained perspective, and like that was why, which is because 9 years later, 9 years later, somebody actually I was in Marshfield, which is crazy you just said that. I was in Marshfield. Someone from Lebanon was at the game and goes, yo, I was a sophomore sitting on the bench. It happened right in front of me. Thank God you're okay. And that was, I believe it was literally the 10th. So he remembered 9 years later on the day of that incident. So it's just, there's no such thing as coincidence. Like it's just kind of a different type of perspective. Like it's crazy.
Tim, unlike Cameron, I want to ask you about some good memories. That 2011 season was crazy, man. Like you said, I was a student at Kickapoo, and just being a huge sports fan, I was really into just the area basketball scene that year. And I remember just everybody was good that year, man. And obviously you were at Willard, and like a young Austin Reuter at Nixa, and Avery Dingman at Branson, and Doriel Green Beckham at Hillcrest, and just everybody was good, man. So I had a lot of fun just watching everybody. I think I got to see almost every team in the area that season. But do you have any specific memories that stand out about your senior year?
A couple, actually a few. So like, I remember what's weird, like when you have piggybacking off that injury, like when you have an injury, you don't know how you're going to respond. And so like the next games after that, we went, it's gonna crush me because I can't think of the school. It's out near Lake of the Ozarks. Camdenton. So we had Camdenton. Corey Weiland was our point guard. He hit a layup at the buzzer to win the game. Now, I mean, like that was a huge win for us. It wouldn't have been a game, in my opinion, if I had played. But like huge, like that was a huge like moral victory for us because like guys had to go get like our team got better because like I got hurt, and so then that we won that game. We played Marshfield, and they were a young team. I mean, they had I don't remember the only kid I can remember was Utah Finley, and another kid named Jared. I can't recollect his last name, but he was like, they were young and they were talented. You know, they were a pretty good team, had a pretty young but strong core. We went into their gym and lost, and that was tough. I think that was our first loss of the season, and then we hosted Parkview. That was my first game back, and Corey Tillery, hands down, is one of the most talented. I mean, actually, he's the most under-talented but still extremely athletic kids. I mean, he averaged a double-double.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an All-American at Evangel. So that, I mean, you're not an All-American by chance. It doesn't happen on accident.
Yeah, he lived on my floor at Evangel, actually. Great player.
Wow. Great player. And I always tell him he's one of the best basketball players I've ever played in high school. I mean, he just had will to win, and he got the job done. So we lost to them, and they had a pretty good team. And then literally the next day, it was a Monday game, and then our Tuesday game, we played Hillcrest at Hillcrest.
Oh yeah.
And that was a MediaCom game. And so I played against Parkview. I struggled. I remember having like cramps, like I was like getting spasms in my ankle, in my hamstrings, just like kind of going into shock because I hadn't played. I mean, it's crazy. I didn't play like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably played, you know, the year before 60, 70 games, you know, with my travel schedule and AU team that I was playing for. And then we played Hillcrest, had a good game. Skylar Frazier, who played at C of O, had a great game. Like he kind of had the responsibility of guarding Doriel and did as well as you can do against a kid who's destined for the NFL.
Yeah.
And we got that victory, and it was a end of the game win. I think I hit 2 free throws to win it.
I think I remember you and Doriel going back to back and then maybe back again on 3-pointers in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we did. And that was so cool. Like that was like a huge, like, I'm back kind of statement game for me. But I didn't do it alone, obviously. But I mean, it was like a huge kind of, I had this incident or this injury or this really like almost career-ending experience, but like I still get to play this game, you know. And so that was a big one for me. And I think probably the last one was Nixa, I believe, was ranked they were ranked 1 in the state.
Yep.
And they played us at Nixa. And from the time that they walked in the gym, I just knew we were going to win. I could probably tell you the stat line of 3 of, like, I had 28, Skylar had 23, and Kyle Raby had like 21. And like, I mean, they had no chance. We beat them by like 30. And I think that put everybody like, oh man, this Willard team's actually really, really good.
Yep.
And they were talented. I mean, they had guys that were really good at basketball, but I think honestly it was like those kids had a really good feel for each other. Like, I mean, they were any time a highlight could take place. I mean, Cameron Bundy has a national championship. He was on that team at Drury. Jordan Epps, he has a national championship. He was on that team. He was 6 men off the bench. So talk about talent, you know, like Austin Ruber went to Missouri State and then finished up at Oral Roberts. I mean, it was just ridden with Ben Fisher was at Drury. I think he won a national championship. So like to beat them and then like later they have accolades, you know, it's just like, yeah, that our team was pretty solid, you know?
Yeah. And then the end of the season, playing in sectionals against Branson.
Yeah.
We don't have to dwell on it too much, but
it's okay. I made peace with it.
The student section was pretty raucous and very upset at the final call of that game. Where we thought you should have been at the free throw line.
Yeah. I think, like, see, what's crazy is I grew up with every single, like, I saw every official from the time that I was 8 years old. So I had relationship with all of them. I worked at the courts, which was like was where, like, I mean, anybody who plays basketball that's around our generation probably got their start at the courts. And those guys, you know, in their off seasons and whatnot, like, they were all there. So, and I worked there, so I had a relationship with all of them. And some of them were good, and some of them were just like surface, but I had a relationship with them. I think because I had a relationship with them, it compromised the game for me, maybe. At the same time, like, things happen for a reason. So from the time it was a jump ball, I remember the first play, it was like Avery Dingman was like a serious push off. I mean, like, man, it was crazy. It was a crazy push off. I ended up on the ground. Crowd is losing it.
Oh, yeah.
He hits a 3 to start the game.
Yeah.
He hits a 3 to start the game, right? I go, here we go. Like, literally, that's what I thought. Here we go. And what people don't understand was we had played Branson 3 times that year and only won 1 of the 3. It was a very convincing win. Second round of blue and gold. And then we played them in Branson, and it was the same environment. Like, what we saw sectionals was the same thing we experienced at their place. Can you have hard feelings? Did it tear me up? Yeah, sure. But in all retrospect, like, that experience, you know, I carried that over, you know, for my whole college career and kind of fueled me. And Avery Dingman was literally at the time, was one of the best basketball players in the area. I mean, he was a highlight. He was and he came out of nowhere. I mean, sophomore year, no one thought he was anything. Junior year, kind of flew under the radar. We beat them that year. And then senior year, he's dunking on everybody. You know, so they were a good team. And he wasn't the only guy on their team. I mean, Coach Bishop's a Hall of Fame coach. So, you know, you just kind of lick your wounds and move on.
Yeah, I'll still never forget that environment, though. Our student section was massive. We had so many kids there, and the gym was so loud. It was really fun.
So loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, the electricity was different. It was. I mean, it felt like a March Madness game for sure. I mean, on both sides. I mean, there was nowhere to sit.
Yeah. I wanted you guys to have the chance to play against Bradley Beal and Chaminade, like in the
for sure
Final Four or something, but they didn't even make it that far. So.
No. Well, what's crazy too is, honestly, I feel like, everybody says, well, why did you play in the Tournament of Champions? And, you know, later, like, Willard teams have played in the Tournament of Champions, and they might have played in it before.
Yeah,
but
they did.
I think, like, no one kind of saw, like, people think, like, if people could, like, see the growth of our team, like, it changed so much in 2 years. From the time that, like, Dusty Killingsworth got the head coaching job, like, I mean, the dynamic of the team changed so much. I went from 6 foot to 6'4" in a month, you know? So, I mean, when does that happen? You know, it doesn't really happen. So I would have loved to play, like, on one of the biggest stages in the country, you know? But basketball, like, I always tell people, basketball was its best, you know, in the time of, like, Anthony Tollivers and the Spencer Lory's or the Lory brothers and Devin Mitchells and Jim Grabowski and Sam Singh. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, and then don't discount Willard, because we had, you know, my brother John and Tyler Ryerson and Alex Anderson. And I mean, basketball was its strongest then. And then, like, when it got to our class, like, basketball was not as strong. Like, there was so much more, like, talent. Like, even, like, 2A through 5A, it was just like any given night, it was just like you had 6-8 guys, you know, it didn't matter. You know, they took pride in going to a small school and all that kind of stuff. And it was, basketball was just really good. I'm not saying it's not good now, but it's just, it was just probably the most competitive it ever was. And being able to be a part of that was just awesome.
Yeah. So then, at what point did recruiting start picking up for you?
So I grew 4 inches. I made a team called Mocan. It's one of the most prominent AAU teams in the Midwest. I mean, Michael Porter, Trae Young, Alec Burks, who was kind of the first guy to go to the. He wasn't the first guy to go to the league, but he was Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. I think he might have been Player of the Year as well. He was a Mocan guy. He's from Grandview High School in Kansas City, and he was the big name right before I got there. Willie Cully-Stein, I played with him. He went to Kentucky, and he's kind of been a journeyman in the league. And but that was kind of the start for me. So the month of July, I went from having 0 offers to having probably around 15, and of those 15, 7 of them were D1. I had some high major interest, but at the time, I think they were trying to push me towards prep, but it was just so new. Prep schools are popping up all over the place.
Much more common now.
And they're good, and they're good. Prep schools back then, kids were playing basketball and didn't have class. They really honed in on making sure that there was the academic integrity and having a high academic standard and preparing kids for higher learning. So I was so unsure of that. So I didn't want to explore it, but I'd gotten letters from Wisconsin, Utah, Oral Roberts, just out of nowhere. But so it was just kind of, my first offer was UMKC. I got it early in the summer. And then after that, it just kind of started rolling.
I guess as a Springfield native, I've always grown up watching Missouri State. So I kind of was always a little bit curious what your relationship was with Missouri State and if there was any mutual interest between you guys.
So I'll have to be, I won't be as candid, because that was kind of tough for me, being a local kid, not being heavily recruited by Missouri State. There was interest. I had a really good relationship with some of the assistant coaches on staff. I had a really good relationship with Kyle Weems, and that was awesome to be able to have those relationships. I think people have to take into account Cuonzo Martin was not meant to end his career at Missouri State.
Yeah,
and so he was preparing himself for the next phase. Right after he left there, I believe he went to Tennessee.
Correct. Yeah.
So I wasn't really on his radar because they were going to have a big year. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that they were going to be successful. And so based on what he was looking for in the future, whether he was going to be there one more year or he was leaving right after 2011 season, I just wasn't what he wanted. Now, I had some opportunities to transfer home.
You're cutting out a little bit on us, Tim.
Can you hear me?
I think it's better. Yep.
Yeah. So I had basically decided that it wasn't necessarily a good idea for me to come home. I mean, I didn't know what people don't understand is in my first year at Northern Colorado, I put on 20 pounds. Over 4 years, I put on 80 pounds. So I don't know that would have taken place if I would have been at Missouri State, nor can I guarantee that I didn't have distractions being a local kid, representing the city. And so that's all, what if this happened or could this have happened? I was a little disappointed about it, but I'm a Missouri State fan through and through. I got a couple guys that I have strong relationships with that have gone through the program after me. I got strong relationship with guys in the program now, kind of play like a big brother role. I've been in the gym with some of them, training them and things like that. Just trying to represent this city well, and just kind of staying attached to the game as long as I can. I'm a Bear. I went to a school that mascot was a bear, and I support the Missouri State Bears. So no hard feelings now.
Were there any schools that were just right up there that, were the last few that got cut from your list?
So at the time, Oral Roberts was really high on my list. Coach Sutton was the name Sutton. It's a line of, future Hall of Fame coaches, in my opinion. They've done some really good stuff. And they had a team that went and beat, KU a few years before I graduated, I think in the second round, early in the tournament. So they had a culture, they had a community. That was really, Missouri State was interest, so they were always there. If they offered, there was a good chance I could have gone there. But Oral Roberts was probably my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being honest. Yeah.
Did anybody try to get you to walk on anywhere?
No. No, there's no one.
I'm just always curious about that.
Honestly, you hear about those stories, the Baker kid from Wichita State, who just out of nowhere, emerges as a star, and then he gets to the league. I always wonder, if that could have been something for me, but, just kind of, it wasn't my story, wasn't my journey. And for me, coming from or having the financial background, my family and my parents worked very hard, but my dad's in ministry. So, it's hard to make a huge financial income when that's not why you do it. I'll just put it that way.
Yep.
And being one of 5 kids, making sure I could secure a scholarship was something that, I always wanted from the time that I was probably 10. It was, I wrote it down. So, with that being said, there was no chance I was walking on anywhere. I would have gotten a full ride at Evangel and I would have taken it. It was all, for me, today kids think they want to go big. I got to go to the biggest school possible. It's what do you want to get out of it? And for me, it was, I wanted to be a college graduate. I wanted to play college sports. And fortunately enough, I was able to go Division I, and I got to play against guys that are in the league. I got to play against high major schools and have success. And that was it. That was enough for me, and then I got to go play overseas. So that was enough for me. That was my experience, and I don't regret anything I've ever done, That
was kind of a good introduction into a question that I had wondered about. Was one of the best, some of the best teams or players that you played against in college?
All right. So top of the list. Can I answer that question for high school as well?
Sure.
So the best high school player I ever played was Anthony Davis. I played him at a tournament just right down the road in Kansas City. Yeah, he's pretty good. So I got to play good. So I got to play with him. I got to play against him. It was the semifinals at Kansas City Classic, and lost by 6. And then now going back to college, playing Damian Lillard my freshman year, that was a eye-opening experience. He literally did the exact same thing he did in college in the league. There was really no drop off for him. He just hit the ground running and never stopped to emerge as one of the best point guards in the NBA. And then, I played against Royce White. A lot of guys don't know his story. He was a Minnesota kid and had to transfer for whatever reason, and then ended up at Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, his my freshman year, you saw he and Anthony Davis duel it out in the Elite Eight, and we played them that year. So there was no one like him. He was kind of a LeBron-esque guard. He could handle the ball. He was big, had some wheels. If you could find the footage from that Kentucky-Iowa State game, he put on a display of what he could do. So
yeah, he dominated the Big 12 that season.
Oh, Absolutely. He absolutely dominated the Big 12. I think we played against I played against Darius Johnson Odom. He was from Wichita State, or he was actually from Marquette. He was one of the best. I think he was a Wooden Watch candidate for a while, just kind of on the list. That was also my freshman year. I played Wichita State when they were the playing mean team or whatever. So that was like Clee Anthony Early. I mean, that team was loaded.
That was a great team.
My God. It was.
How about the first game of your junior year at Northern Colorado?
Oh, yeah. K-State?
Yeah, at K-State.
Man, at K-State, yeah. That was crazy. I think like to this day, like no one until you're there, like all the preparation you put in to like be in now and to like to put into one moment or one experience or one game, that was it. That year, in terms of the culture of our team, like everybody was dedicated to getting better. I mean, I didn't go home the entire summer. I was in really good shape. My role changed, but we were just very talented, very deep. And then like it was bacon night for the game, and it was like, you know, those are the games where, you know, we can get some money for the athletics program. You know, they didn't think that we were going to come in there and beat them. The crazy part is we only won by 1, but like we were up by like 12 with like 2 minutes left. Like they just kept going to the free throw line and we just kind of just grinded it out. And, you know, in those environments where you got Big 12 officials, you got, you know, their fans, you got to be perfect. You know, you got to come together. You got to take their runs because they're going to have them. And the crazy part is they ended up beating like they ended up beating KU that year, I believe. They were co-Big 12 champs the year before. They ended up beating Oklahoma State, and like on ESPN, some of the analysts were like, Northern Colorado actually might be one of the best teams in the country. Like that was some of the that was kind of, I mean, granted, whatever, but that was some of the narrative. That was kind of like, that was the buzz behind our team. It didn't go the way it was supposed to. Tate Unruh had a shot at the elbow to win the game and misses it at the end of regulation. We're playing Weber State, second round of the Big Sky tournament at Weber State, and going to overtime, and they got their fans there, and we lose. And honestly, we win that game. We go to the national tournament.
Yeah, I remember always tuning into your conference tournaments, just hoping that you'd be able to sneak into the NCAA tournament. Yeah,
just didn't happen. We got to play in the CIT that year, and that was a really, really, really good experience for us too. So, postseason in general is just awesome. So, excited about that, and it's a cool opportunity as well.
I've got a little stat for you. I don't know if you're aware of this, but did you know that you were 7th in the nation your senior year in 2-point field goal percentage?
In college?
Yeah.
No, I had no idea.
Yep, 7th out of every player in D1.
Wow. I was 7th in the nation for 2-point percentage?
Yep.
Jeez. Cool. Well, it's like that's just one of those things where like you don't get wrapped up in, I mean, like whenever like you enjoy just like the game itself, you don't get wrapped up in stats, and you want to win, so you're just willing to do whatever it takes to win. And I kind of wish I would have known that. But cool.
That's what separates the player from the people that do the podcast.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for giving me that stat.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm ready to switch gears just a little bit unless you got something else.
Go ahead.
Tim, can we talk about the dunking ref?
Can we not? Okay, yeah, we can address the dunking ref.
It just for the listeners, just Google dunking ref, and you will see articles from ESPN, Bleacher Report, Fox News, everybody showing showing our guy Tim here, throwing down a windmill at the National Homeschool Basketball Tournament, right? That you were reffing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So at the time, I was kind of in between like career options. Like I was done playing basketball. You just have to you have to try to find yourself as an athlete, like life after sports,
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just reffing a tournament, just really grinding it out. I probably ref like 20 plus games. And so I got to ref the last night, and I was getting egged on forever. Like, they're just like kids like, dunk it. I'm like, nah. And finally it was like, okay, well, what it is today with everybody in their cell phones.
Yep.
Literally almost everybody in the gym has their cell phone out. And and from there it took off. I mean, to put things into perspective, like it happened, it was like really cool experience. From the time I got home, there was 800,000 views on House of Highlights. That was 45 minutes.
That's nuts.
I remember seeing
And what's
that.
crazy,
I didn't even know
what's
it was
crazy
him.
about what's crazy is so two things. What's crazy is everybody thought it was my brother John because we look alike. And then number two, everybody like I had dunked it at the courts because they rent like every gym in the area. So I had dunked it, and I have the footage. I had done a 360 windmill, right? They sent that to them and they wouldn't post it. They were like, yeah, whatever. But then like you get into, Hammond Student Center with all those people that were there, and the way the kids are responding to it, and you add that to, it was just so genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you can't, like, people that they create content, trying to create something that will sell. It was all pure, like, and that was what was so great.
You can't just force something to go viral like that.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do it. That was crazy. I had no desire to do it. Like that. So that was really cool. I'm gonna spark, actually. Like, I got a buddy who is he's a Facebook marketing director, does really, 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 really well. And he's like, Tim, I know you have like vertical jump programs, things you've experienced, like build your own vertical jump program. So that may be coming in the future, not too long from now. We're actually kind of figuring out the legal side of it, and then actually like building the content here in the next couple months.
Nice.
So that I didn't want to do it, but sometimes you can leverage like an experience or a video, I guess.
Yeah.
So
you had already played overseas for a little while at this point?
Yeah, I'd already played overseas.
Where did you? I wasn't really familiar with your overseas career. Can you tell us just a little bit about it?
Sure. So my career was very, very, very limited. It was kind of, the market was down. They were dealing with some financial stuff in Europe, just overall, just figuring out currency. And I ended up playing at NOC's Patalemni. It's in Greece, or it's an island off the coast of Greece, between Greece and Turkey. That was my only season that I got to play, which is crazy. It was great. Like, it was a great experience. I made all import team. I averaged 15, 7, and 6, I believe. I got to play in like an all-star game over there. But it was just short-lived. Sometimes, you work hard and you spend your whole life doing something, and sometimes you need a little bit of luck.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I ran out. So it happens. I still love the game. I got to walk away from the game, I felt like it was kind of taken away from me, but I also have like my ankles and my knees.
Right.
And, most guys have these catastrophic injuries in their careers, and, I can go play today and be fine. And and not, I didn't have such something so traumatic where I don't get to play basketball anymore. I still get to play the game. So
That's a perfect segue. Talking about playing today, I think if I'm not mistaken, you've been in the gym a little bit with Anton Brookshire, and our
yeah.
listeners would love to hear any insight you have about Anton's game because he's headed to Columbia.
Yeah. He's a talented kid, very talented kid. I think like what people like, he shoots the ball.
We're losing you a little bit, Tim.
You got me?
Maybe.
Am I there?
Yeah, I think we're
Can you
good.
hear? Good. I think like what separates him the most is his ability to kind of his approach to the game. I think mentally he's a lot more mature than most 16, 17-year-old boys, He goes in, I mean, it's like bring your lunch pail to work, and let's go. That's something that, I can say sometimes you get distracted. I can say that I got distracted a couple times in my youth, and just understanding that like this could be a livelihood. I mean, that's what separates guys who are playing basketball for a very, very long time and guys who have my career. So Anton he's very, very talented. He's and it's not just his skill set, but mentally I think he just sees the game. Like he just sees the game as a business. And if he approaches it that way, throughout the rest of his career, wherever it ends, sky's the limit. I mean, he's a top 100 ESPN player for that reason, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're definitely excited to watch him.
Yeah, I think really what people don't get to see, you get to see a little bit on social media, but what people don't get to see is like the hours that he's probably in the gym that no one knows. He's a gym rat. I have a decent relationship with Rob Yanders, who's a basketball guy. He's dedicated himself to the game and giving back to this community. He's a SMS grad or Missouri State grad. He's instilled that in him, and done a really good job just kind of keeping him grounded and kind of polishing him and putting him in a position to be successful. So he's working for sure.
Yeah, we get to see him next year in the Tournament of Champions. So he put on a show against Oak Hill this past season as a junior. So that was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely really excited.
Yeah, I think that kind of solidified that top 100 ESPN deal. He proved that he could play with some of the nation's best talent, and what better to have a coming out party against like a team as that has the lineage of talent that they've had in Oak Hill. I mean, top of the list in my opinion is Carmelo Anthony. And then it goes on from there. So that's just kind of one of those things where he did his job, and now he gets to reap the reward from it.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of communication with Rob Yanders at the Tournament of Champions, and he just seems like like you said, a really good mentor to Anton, and kind of got him in the right mindset. So that's really good to hear. And the way you described him just really seems to align really well with what Cuonzo Martin would be looking for, probably in a player, and that just makes a lot of sense why they were a match.
Oh, 100%. And I think too, like if we could go back and talk about my recruiting and like not having Cuonzo Martin be so interested in me, I think that's some of it. I think just seeing like my background and his background are entirely different. I'm not saying that he's more talented than I am. I'm not saying that he's like had more upside. What he's had to go through, and where he comes from, that's the type of kid that Cuonzo recruits, and he wants tough, hard-nosed kids, and he didn't get an opportunity to see that. So, Anton's a tough kid, just, I mean, he had a major loss this year and persevered through that. I don't know if you guys know that. He lost his mother. So to be able to go through that and then still be able to perform and be successful, I mean, it speaks volumes to him as a man, honestly.
Yeah.
To he as a man. Yeah.
Kyle, I think Tim's done a fantastic job answering all of our questions.
Yeah,
Do you have
fantastic job. You really answered all my questions, that's for sure. I think that's really all I had.
The only other thing I have is, do you remember Coach Davis's psychology class senior year of high school?
Yeah, I got in trouble all the time.
Yeah, we kind of had a little corner of the room that didn't really pay attention too well.
Yeah, Jimmy Davis was my guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got in trouble all the time. I was a clown. I'm surprised I graduated high school, but fortunately enough, it takes a village.
Yep. Well, Tim, we really appreciate it. We won't take any more of your time.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate
fantastic.
it. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anytime. Yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Yep, good luck to you, man.
All right, see you guys. See you, Cam, the producer.
See ya.
And we're back, and that was an interview with Tim Huskisson. It was a lot of fun, like we said. And Kyle, you kind of wanted to go over a couple of the topics maybe in a little bit more detail and reflect a little bit on our discussion.
Yeah, I thought he said some really interesting things. One of the reasons that we wanted to have him on here was just to kind of give us some insight from what, a Division I athlete's perspective. What's it like to go through your recruiting process, and what was your relationship like with certain coaches? And so obviously, us being Mizzou fans, we were interested in his relationship with Cuonzo Martin, who was the coach at Missouri State at the time whenever he was graduating. So
you saw his reaction immediately when you brought up Missouri State. It was just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, it was an interesting year, and he detailed it pretty well. But Cuonzo Martin was probably knew he was heading to the next level. I think they only had 1 or 2 commits that came in that year. And it was interesting that he talked about Cuonzo looking for such a specific player, and that Tim admitted I wasn't really that player he was looking for. And he's looking for those guys who are tough and have really been through those life experiences and
gone through adversity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting when we're considering certain players out there that may not hold a Mizzou offer. And it truly may just be because it's something, a connection that Cuonzo doesn't feel with that player or players. So that there's more to recruiting than just offering every player that's good, that's close to you geographically. Sometimes the coach may really feel like there's a certain type of player they're going after. Whether you feel like that's right or wrong, or whether I feel like it's right or wrong, it's definitely something that happens. Mm-hmm. And coaches are looking for a certain kind of player on the court and off the court.
Yeah, it's interesting I don't want to extrapolate too much off of what Tim said, but any information like that just kind of lets you see things through a slightly different lens, or changes your lens just a little bit for how I'm digesting recruiting news in 2020. And obviously, Coach Martin is not the same coach that he was when he was at Missouri State, or when he was at Tennessee, or when he was at Cal. And you have to hope that he's grown and developed along the way. So, but I mean, just hearing that from Tim, that back in 2011, that's that type of player. Him looking for that type of player is basically, what we see holding true in his time at Missouri. Now, I don't think Michael Porter Jr. and Jonte Porter went through, I don't think they had 2 terribly adverse upbringings. So there obviously comes a point where talent supersedes that fit. And part of that probably has to do with how long a player expects to be on campus. You could probably, this is going to vary from coach to coach, but if I were a coach, I could put up with 1 year of maybe a bad attitude in a uber talented player that's going to be a one and done a lot easier than I could put up with a bad attitude from a 4-year guy who may not start till his junior year.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Obviously, it was really interesting to hear him talk about Anton Brookshire and their relationship. Again, it just seems like the way he described Anton made perfect sense. Exactly why Cuonzo really wanted to go out and get this guy. They clearly have a connection. And, we kind of felt that, at least from an outsider's perspective, that they were just a match. And it really seems like that is definitely the case, that they just kind of philosophically feel the same way about basketball, maybe about life.
Yeah. And Tim kind of presented Anton as an incredibly hard worker and something that you can't see just from going to games or watching the Tournament of Champions or something like that. Now you can see the result of all that hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But, he described a kid that is absolutely going to put in the effort to be the very best he can be. And obviously, if you are a top 100 type player and you bring that attitude along with you instead of a poor attitude, then you're going to be noticed by a lot more coaches. You're going to get playing time earlier. You're just going to be more successful. So I don't know. Tim potentially wouldn't have told us anything too terribly bad about Anton, but Tim's pretty honest, and I think I'm just really happy about everything that he said about that future Mizzou guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as a Mizzou fan, you got to be excited about that for sure.
I think I said like 3 times that we were excited for Anton to be in Columbia and just to watch him next year in the Tournament of Champions. Well, Kyle, that was our first interview in the books.
Went pretty well.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys enjoy that. I know it's, not like a former Mizzou player or anything like that, but, I think he really provided some nice insight that, I think is very relevant and hopefully is very interesting.
Yeah. This episode, more than any, we would really appreciate your feedback. Let us know if this is something that you like and want to see more of. Obviously, this is about as furthest from Mizzou as we would ever go with an interview, just to try to keep it on topic. But if that's something that you enjoyed, just let us know, and we'll be in the comments of the YouTube video to chat with everyone. And we want to tell everybody where they can find us.
As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We are on YouTube. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Mizzou Sports Pod. You can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
I'm waiting for the day when I say, you want to tell them where they can find us? And Kyle just says, no. No, I don't want to do it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Yes, Kyle?
Huh?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I would never do that on a podcast.
We will see you next week.